Hey folks, welcome back. This is a lecture series on responsive design, and this is the final portion of it that walks through examples of responsive design in the marketplace and also walks through a quick tutorial of how to render those different screens based on your browser. I'm going to switch over. As we walk through this exercise of examining the different display types and different device types, there are a couple questions I want you to ask yourself as we're looking at these different screens. The first one is trying to understand the usability differences between all of the different devices. So here, usability references the different components and how they work for that particular device. So does it work well on mobile, and why and how? Same thing with tablet and desktop. And trying to understand kind of the finer interaction patterns that exist for each of the devices. The second thing I want you to ask is trying to understand the user expectation of not only the content, but interactions as well for mobile, tablet, and desktop. So if we go back to the tax refund example that I provided, there are expectations from the user between those different mediums, but also interaction nuances for those devices. So perhaps I can kick off a tax return using my mobile device, but I wouldn't be able to input any finer specific detailed data unless I re-accessed it on my desktop experience. And perhaps on tablet, I might be looking for different visualizations or different ways to optimize my return before I submit it. The third thing I want you to ask yourself as we're going through and looking at different apps, and while you conduct your competitive analysis, is specifically how these experiences should be different across our devices. We hear a lot that consistency is king and that we want to make sure that all the expectations across devices are met. However, as you now know, there's very specific nuances in expectation in these different devices, so you should understand what those experiences are and how they differ. And as you complete your own design project, I would expect that this research would most likely be firsthand research. So being able to not only create the competitive analysis, but also audit other existing products and being able to talk to your intended or targeted user base to learn more about those expectations. So in lieu of owning a significant amount of devices, we will use Chrome Inspect to look at different websites and to see exactly how responsive they are and how the design morphs based on the display size. So in this case, you will need to download Google Chrome if you don't already have it. And in Chrome, there is something that's built in called Developer Tools, and we will be using that for this exercise. So let me go ahead and switch over my views. Okay, so here we are looking at my design portfolio. I've created it in WordPress, and I really like WordPress since a significant number of their themes are responsive. So it's already built in. I don't actually have to do any extra design work or alter the copy or content based on the device that it's rendered on. So here in Chrome, in this top bar, we'll see a couple of different menu options, but we'll go ahead and click View and scroll down to Developer and then select Developer Tools. So here you'll notice that the content on the page refreshes, and on the right side you'll see a bunch of code that helps enable this design and brings it to life. And then here in this center column, you'll see this design work for this website and how it's actually adjusted based on the screen size. So here we have a drop down that says responsive, and next to it we have dimensions. So in this case, this is 300 wide by 741 tall, and since I'm under the responsive tab, I can actually scroll out to the side here and see how my design is adjusting based on this new viewport. So here I'm at 783, and you can see now that the grid has readjusted. And if I continue going out, you'll then see this navigation bar show up instead. So in my tablet view and in my mobile view, I had a button that said menu, but in the case of my desktop view, you can see the menu items here. Something else you can do at the responsive drop-down tab, you can click it and actually select a pre-configured device. So here, if I switched over to iPad, it will show what it looks like an iPad, and it provides these dimensions for me. Or I can switch it over to the iPhone 10, and you can see what it looks like there. So this is a neat way to examine what your product would look like on different devices, or to look at other websites that may not have a mobile app, so that you can complete your competitive analysis to better understand how these designs are laid out. So I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my next screen. Wait for it. Okay. So we'll take a look at two examples. We'll look at Mint and TripAdvisor. So Mint is a personal finance product that you can use to view the financial transactions that you have connected with your different checking accounts and credit card accounts. You'll also be able to get a quick financial snapshot of your budget and your spending against it. And it'll also allow you to track incoming bills that are addressed to you. So here, so in the previous screen, you saw a mobile view, and that provided really specific information. And again, it's very snackable. We're not quite overwhelming our users with content. Whereas on tablet, here in this landscape and portrait mode, we're starting to see an introduction of more detailed content. So there's really specific use of hierarchy and sizing and colors that help draw attention to different parts of the screen. So for instance, some of the alerts are colored in red when we look at the feed where it says today. Anything that is income or in addition to the money you currently have is in green. Anything that's a debt or that needs to be paid is in black. So they're using a lot of color cues and hierarchy here to explain your financial situation in a snapshot. We'll also notice that there's these column views as well, and they are similar between landscape and portrait. And these columns actually are sized pretty nicely where they can be reused for the mobile design. So here's an example of the desktop view. We have our navigation, which is significantly different from the navigation in mobile or in tablet. And we'll see that the use of iconography is now being introduced on a larger scale than it was in tablet or in mobile. Here we also have some portrait views of the app, and these screens show a flow of a user starting from the category view and tapping through and looking at a specific category, so in this case home, and being able to view all the transactions associated with that category and being able to see a detailed view of a specific transaction. So here you can also tell in that center screen that the content is stretched out through the width of the screen. This, because there's also a lot of space, this lends itself nicely to being scaled down for mobile. And here on the right, we'll see transactions and a detailed transactions view. Again, also in a column design, but something that can be scaled pretty easily for mobile as well. And with landscape, we're seeing that content is just being laid out slightly different, but it still looks very familiar to all of the other screens that we have. One last example to leave you with is TripAdvisor. So TripAdvisor is a website and an app that helps you plan for trips to new parts of the world where you haven't been yet. So here they have a really consistent layout where they reuse their iconography and their content and their hierarchy quite consistently through this experience. So we'll see that they have a header, they have a navigation bar, at least on the iPad or the tablet view and the desktop view, but they've collapsed it under a menu icon for mobile. most likely for spacing purposes. Um, they have a use of a grid of icons, which serve also as a secondary navigation point, as well as this popular destinations card that lives in mobile. We'll also see that in tablet, these elements are still available there. There's just more space for additional content. And here we're also starting to see this introduction of their upgraded experiences or their paid experiences, and a value proposition for why someone should sign up for this product. When we scale out and look at the desktop design, we're also noticing kind of this refactor of the tablet experience. But again, they're just making more use of the screen real estate that they have.